Article 1, Section 8 is specific as to what Congress shall do, period. 10th Amendment, which I don't have memorized.
That's what I call the forgotten amendment.
The power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Is the Wall Street Journal willing to drive this drum right through Lexington and Concord? Because that's where this is the issue. The states have to put their feet down.
I totally agree with you, sir. I mean, what we've seen is basically a subjugation of the states. You're right, states' rights have been trampled on, the 10th Amendment, and the 9th and 10th Amendment, both of them, which basically, you said it very well, the rights not specifically delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states and the people. I don't think there's a single member of Congress who understands that. I don't think the president understands this. By the way, the thing that's so great about America is that we are 50 states. You know, actually it's interesting. Ronald Reagan used to talk about these United States of America, not the United States of America, these United States, because this was the genius of our system, that we are 50 laboratories of democracy, and the idea of just basically having the federal pay for everything for the states and telling the states what to do is simply an outrage. So I couldn't agree with you more.
When it comes to statistics, the lefty loonies bring out all their scare tactics to scare people with disabilities, saying that, oh, they're going to cut your benefits, they're going to cut your benefits. Well, I happen to have a vested interest in this area, so I'm wondering, what can conservatives do to responsibly cut without harming?
I'll tell you, I mean, the first thing we ought to do, I think, I hope everybody in this room would agree with me. There's $550 billion of, quote, stimulus money that hasn't been spent. Let's not spend the $550 billion. Since the day the president signed that bill into law, America has lost 3 million jobs. We haven't gained 3 million jobs, we've lost 3 million jobs. How in the world has that been a success? And so that would be number one. Number two, let's cut every single agency by 10% across the board right now. I'm not done yet, folks. I'm just getting started. Let's abolish the Department of Education, the Department of Energy. $700 billion, and I'm just getting started, right? So there's plenty of areas we've cut the budget, and I'm so sick of these politicians saying, I thought it was a laugh line in Obama's speech. We're going to have a freeze on spending. You know, that's going to apply to 16% of the budget. It's going to save 0.03 cents for every dollar the government saves. And you know when it takes effect? Not this year, next year. Let's cut spending right now.
Thank you, Steve. As the government spends and borrows trillions and trillions of dollars, what impact is this going to have on interest rates moving forward?
Oh my gosh, I'm terrified of this. If the federal government borrows $10 trillion, that means it has to go to the capital markets. Somebody has to lend the federal government $10 trillion. You know who's been lending the money so far, right? The Chinese, right? For the first time, this is a scary statistic, folks. For the first time in American history, this year, the Chinese will own more of our debt than American citizens will. I don't know about you, but that's...
Repudiate the debt.
Pardon?
Repudiate the debt.
We may have to do that. But the point is that what's going to happen is interest rates are going to have to rise. That's going to make it harder for people to get a mortgage. It's going to make it harder for businesses to get loans. So this is one of the reasons the debt is such an insidious feature of our modern American economy.
Steve, in 2006, the Democrats ran on the premise that the United States was in the worst mess that we've ever been in. We elected a Democratic Congress, House, and Senate. When the president now claims that the whole problem stemmed from the Bush administration, we've got to stand up and say, wait a minute, you people have been in power for the last 3 years. You've approved every cent that could be spent. The president can't spend the money. It's the Congress that spends the money. We've got to make the message stick.
Right. How many of you are sick and tired of Barack Obama blaming everything? I'm not here to defend George W. Bush. A lot of things George W. Bush did, I think, were wrong. But the idea, 14 months into his presidency, that Barack Obama, the man who said it's time for individual responsibility, for transparency, to blame everything on his predecessor, I just think is very poor style. I'm very disappointed. When is he going to stand up and take responsibility himself?
The TARP, the budgets, and the stimulus, I see the Democrats in Concord and Washington taking taxpayer money, moving it through government employees, community organization groups, lawyers, and nonprofits where that
And
money is-
Acorn. Have you all followed the Acorn story, right? Acorn is still getting money from the stimulus. How outrageous is that?
So, and what they're doing there, those organizations then, I'm searching for a better word than launder, but they
That's a pretty good
launder
word.
the money.
That's a pretty good word.
And turn it into contributions to the Democrats and also paid volunteers. So I see them setting up a perpetual motion machine. My question for you, in the stimulus bills, I've understood there are provisions there obligating the states to maintain the spending level and the personnel for several more years after the end of the government money. Would you comment on that?
Yeah, I just wrote an editorial on this 3 weeks ago. The federal money is bankrupting the states because it has basically put handcuffs on them and said, now that you've taken this money, it's called they call them maintenance of effort requirements that say these states can't cut Medicaid, they can't cut education, they can't cut higher ed, they can't cut health care. Well, folks, that's 80% of the state budgets. And so what it means is any state. And that's why some of these great governors, like the governor of Texas, said, we don't want your money. We don't want your money because it's going to bankrupt us. And I think shame on your governor here in New Hampshire for taking the money in the first place. It's putting you in a deeper hole.
My name is Tom. I'm a small business owner.
Sir,
I have a high deductible.
What do you do?
Pardon me?
What kind of business is it?
It's market research. I have a high deductible healthcare insurance policy. My family of 5, we're all healthy. Last year, we spent $20,000 on healthcare. That was paid out of my own wallet. And this is my bill. And I just want to talk about some of the things that we've experienced.
Make it quick if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's going to be very quick. $290 for earwax removal. That means $120 for the doctor to say it needed to be removed, and the remainder for it to be removed. I look at all these bills and I see double billing and what borders on outright fraud. What are people in Washington going to do about this?
Yeah, it is a fraud. But if you have these high deductible policies, I think it's a good thing. People will actually examine their bills and they'll determine whether they want to pay for these things. I mean, look, I think the idea of letting people pay more themselves means that you're going to have a much more competitive system. I always tell the story, about a year and a half ago I was skiing in Aspen. I came back and I took a really bad fall on my shoulder. When I came back I couldn't even raise my left arm above my shoulder, and I'm left-handed. So I went to the doctor. There's a true story. Went to the orthopedic surgeon. He gave me an MRI. He looked at my shoulder and he said, Steve, I've got some bad news for you. You've got a small tear in your rotator cuff. He said, you may need surgery or you may need physical therapy, one or the other. So I turned to the doctor and I said, well, doctor, I've just got one question for you. How much money is this going to cost? Right? How much is it going to cost if I have this surgery? He turned to me. No. And you know what he said? He said, I've been doing these surgeries for 15 years. He said, you're the first patient who ever asked me how much it's going to cost. And that's amazing, isn't it? I mean, we as Americans, we always ask what things. It's like going to a new car showroom and just saying, I like that red sports car, I'll take it. But you're right, sir. Then he turned to me and said, by the way, Steve, I don't know how much it's going to cost. So when you have a system where neither the doctor nor the patient know what these things cost, we have a totally dysfunctional system.
Now, if we assume that in this next election cycle, the Democrats are defeated next fall, Obama loses in 2012, to what extent can all the damage that they have done in terms of increasing the number of agencies and employees, to what extent can we actually expect to be able to reverse all that?
It takes a long time to reverse this buildup of government, and this is a good thing to end on, I think, Corey. Remember when I talked about the health care bill? This fight, Corey, is not over on health care. We cannot rest on our laurels. The latest I'm hearing out of Washington, they're going to try to pass this bill now through the United States Senate with 51 votes, which would be, to me, an incredible outrage. I mean, they're basically saying, we don't care what the American people think. We don't care that they voted in Virginia, in New Jersey, in Massachusetts, and all these states against this. It terrifies me, sir. And so I hope that you all, can we all make a pledge right now that we will fight till our death, till they take away our health care free.